right, welcome to the Sober Heathen Podcast. I'm Scott. I'm the host of the Sober Heathen Podcast, and holy crap, this is going to be a good one. Buckle up. I can already tell, just talking before we started rolling with the Great Weight Coach, full of energy. This is going to be intense. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be the shot in the arm that I needed for today. I can tell you that right now. Just want a friendly reminder to make sure to check out all the podcasts if you can on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Like, comment, subscribe. It'll help get the word out. Everybody that comes on this podcast is doing something brave and awesome by telling their story. And it's amazing to me every single day how many people reach out and say that they heard something that they could relate to and it helped them out on that day. And that's what it's all about. So we're not going to waste any time. Here is the Great Weight Coach. Welcome to the podcast, my friend. Tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Hey, nice to be on, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's interesting too, man. I was thinking about this last night while I was sitting for a little while, and I say all the time that we recover for ourselves, right? We do this for us. And you may have sponsors, you may have friends, you may have cohorts, you may have, people in meetings, you might have shrinks, you might have coaches, but at the end of the day, the recovery path that we walk is a singular one, right? And we do it for us, man. And honestly, Scott, that's why interventions don't work. Let's just get that out of the way right away. Interventions don't work. Like, you're going to ambush somebody, you're going to kidnap somebody into getting their shit together, right? Like, that's going to work.
Yep.
And it never does. And it never does. And so, I was thinking about you, and I watched a couple of episodes over the last couple of days in between client calls. And I was like, this is him doing this podcast is going to keep him clean.
Sure.
Right? Because this begins, this process of us getting our collective shit together. It is about us in the beginning, but if we do it correctly, man, it always ends up being about serving others, helping others, helping others to get their collective crap together. I mean, that's why I do this work. That's why I became Great Weight Coach.
Yeah. And I was just checking out your Twitter feed and everything that you got, and we'll get into that. I agree. The first time I went to treatment, it was because my future stepson, which that ended up not happening because of future events, but he came up and he hugged me and he was crying. He's like, "You have to go." And so I went for him. I went for my fiance, his mom, and I went for my kids, and it didn't work. And then it didn't work again because I went for my sponsor and the people in the meeting. And then it wasn't until I made that choice myself to go for myself that things really started to build upon that. So yeah. So tell us a little bit more about the Great Weight Coach and what you do. You got a book coming out even. I mean, let it spill, man. Let's hear all about what you're doing.
Jeez. So, I born and raised in Northeastern Ohio. Was one of those incredibly bright kids, right? Like, if you gave me a standardized test, I'd blow it off the map. But if you put me in a classroom situation, I was like a dog in a room full of mirrors, right? Just completely distracted. Ritalin back in the 70s, ADD in the 80s, bright, creative, but was a constant disappointment to my father, who was a professional educator, right? And so because of that, I end up incurring a fair amount of trauma. I never got beaten with a 2x4, no sexual abuse, nothing like that, but definitely trauma as a kid, right? And I was forced to get a job at 14 years old. And so I became a library page, and I'm sure that no one listening knows what a library page is, but there were these things back in the day, these buildings, and they used to put a bunch of books in this building, and they were called libraries. And you could go and back when people didn't steal shit all the time, you could actually go and check out a book for free. And when you brought the book back, I was the little dude who put the books back on the shelves in the proper order so you could go find them. Yep. And all of the people that I worked with, all of my colleagues, were obviously older than I was. I was 14 and I started hanging out with adults. And that was when I began drinking. And by the time I was 16 years old, I was hanging out in the hood, drinking Wild Irish Rose, drinking bum wine, right? At 16. So I had like no easing into it. And, you know, my father was a maintenance drinker. He always had a Miller Lite in his hand. Matter of fact, the old man died with a Miller Lite in his hand. He had a blood clot. He had a blood clot that went from his knee to his heart. And God just shut the lights out on him, and he had a Miller Lite in his hand when he went. Right. And so I learned how to drink from my father. And I will tell you, if anyone out there is, if they got taught how to drink by their parents, it is a dark but liberating day, man, when you understand that you are becoming, or you've become, your parents.
Yeah.
It is, man. But I got to tell you, on the other side of that is freedom, is a real kind of freedom, man, because you understand it's like, oh, hold on. Like I got that imprint, right? Like when you have fresh cookie dough, right? You put your thumb into it and you pull your thumb out and that imprint sticks in the dough. That's what that is. Do you understand? And sometimes the dough rises back out and we can back away from it. But sometimes, man, that energetic, that psychic imprint lasts forever. And I had a moment in my 40s where I was driving around LA all casual with a tall boy or a 32-ounce Miller High Life between my legs, just driving like there's not LA sheriffs everywhere, like there's not cops everywhere, just literally sitting in my car drinking at a stoplight.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, I have become the old man. I'm the old man. Look at you. What you promised yourself that you'd never become, you have become it.
Yep.
But I got to tell you, you get to that place though, and you understand that, oh, this was shown to me. It was shown to me to be acceptable. It was shown to me to be okay. And you begin to understand that it is not, our behavior was not entirely our fault. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, I drank and hold on, sorry about that. I drank and I drank and I drank. I tried 3 times to get sober. 3 times to get sober, both those times through AA, and I would get 2 years, I get 3 years, and I'd be like, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like everybody who gets sober or who is on a medication, right? You're like, I'm healed, I'm good. I can have 1. Come on, son. We know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We know that never works. It never happens. And so, you know, 9 times out of 10, if you quit and you go back, not only does it get just as bad as it was quick, it gets worse.
Sure.
And so the 3rd time was the charm for me. I went through a disastrous divorce, and you know, it was like a country record. I mean, I lost a career, I lost a house, I lost the dog, I lost all my money. And dude, I was 43 years old and sleeping in my car above the Hollywood Bowl in the Hollywood Hills, because, you know, nobody would come up there and mess with you. And I used to have this little place in the cul-de-sac, and I'd go park the car and I'd go sleep up there. And I knew, honestly, man, I knew that if I didn't do it now, that this was it. And I knew that AA, while it might be part of it, it had failed me twice. It didn't give me what I needed. And I knew that there was more. And so I began to spend every waking moment I could to figure out what alcoholism was, why I couldn't shake this thing, and what I had to do in order to fix it for the rest of my life. not just for 2 years, not just for 3 years, and I go back and end up doing stupid shit again, to actually go and fix it. And so I began to study nutrition. I began to study supplementation. I began to study all of the things that, frankly, I had never been taught before. I had never been taught these things before. And so that for me is where everything started to change, because I began to understand that a great deal of addiction, and whether it be cigarettes, gambling, weed, booze, whatever it is, like a lot of it has to do with the brain chemistry up here and what it is that you're putting here.
Sure.
Right. And so I began to study orthomolecular medicine, which is the science of healing the body through food and supplementation. And then I began to understand that there was a cure, for alcoholism. And I'm sure I'm going to trigger the crap out of some people when I say this, but the last thing I wanted, dude, the very last thing I wanted was to be going to a church basement and sitting my ass in an uncomfortable folding chair until I was 70 years old.
Yeah.
Calling myself an alcoholic long after I'd stopped drinking. Because look, this reality is a mirror. You have to understand that. Your listeners have to understand that, okay? And that we are what we say we are. And if I am calling myself an alcoholic 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years after I've had a drink, after it's no longer an issue and I can walk down the wine aisle at the grocery store and have my stomach turn and no cravings, like I'm well past it, but I'm still identifying as an alcoholic, I do not find that helpful at all. And I think it is almost like re-traumatizing ourselves over and over and over again. Like at some point you have to be able to let it go.
Yeah.
And if you're like, and it's the same way when Christians call themselves sinners. You've been going to church for 30 years. You can recite Bible verses off the top of your head. You're counseling others. You're doing all this work. Really, you're still a sinner?
Yeah.
Still? And I just don't find it helpful. And so what I learned was that back in the day, Bill W. met a gentleman named Abram Hoffer, who was a German doctor. And Dr. Hoffer was curing hardcore catatonic schizophrenics, the kind of schizophrenics that would stare at a wall and not say a word for 20 years. And Hoffer was curing their schizophrenia using high doses of niacin and vitamin C. Okay. So Bill W., back in the day, he got sober, founded Alcoholics Anonymous, but he was still dealing with absolutely crippling depression. Crippling depression, couldn't shake it. He ended up meeting Hoffer, and Hoffer was like, hey, man, I think I got something for you, because Hoffer found, he actually started a group in British Columbia called Schizophrenics Anonymous. And his patients would get together and have these meetings, much like AA, and they all responded to the niacin and vitamin C combo, okay? And he found that there was a certain amount of crossover between schizophrenia and alcoholism.
Sure.
And so he was like, well, if this is working for schizophrenics, and let's say 30% of them are also alcoholics, will this work for a straight alcoholic without the schizophrenia? It did. It did. And he began to integrate this into Alcoholics Anonymous along with Bill W. And then at a certain point, the Rockefeller Foundation and the rise of Western medicine, which is all based on the wealth of the Rockefeller Foundation, right?
Yep.
Began to infiltrate Alcoholics Anonymous, and they stopped teaching diet and supplementation. Okay? That for me is a problem. That for me is it's an ethical problem, because, say what you will about AA, they pass that plate around, son.
Yeah.
They pass that plate around at every meeting, and dollars go in the basket. And if you are curing people, guess what happens?
Yeah, the
You
money
get a-
goes away.
Yeah,
There is no money in a cure ever.
ever, ever. And I got pissed off. And I got pissed off. And I'm like, you know what? I'm never going back there. I'm never going back there. As it turns out, they're serving cakes for sober birthdays. There's always a box of donuts, always a box of cookies. Let me tell you something. If you are an alcoholic, you need to avoid sugar like it is the devil itself. Like it's the devil itself, because so much of the alcoholic cravings that we get are based on your body wants the sugar, man.
Yeah.
Your body wants the sugar. And so we go to meetings, we have a donut, we have a cake, and all of a sudden it just kickstarts that cycle again. Like if you're really serious about trying to get sober, the ketogenic diet, the carnivore diet, a sugar-free diet, a very, very low carbohydrate diet is going to save your ass.
Yeah,
And it's going to ensure that you don't drink again.
Yeah, this is fantastic. This is very interesting because in every, maybe not every, but in the majority of the AA meetings that I've been a part, it's encouraged to eat the candy and pass the candy basket around. And it is. I mean, that's exactly what you're feeding. You're feeding that sugar. I mean,
Yeah.
I was 285 pounds when I went into my third treatment, and I lost 50 pounds in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I was drinking peppermint schnapps by the gallon.
Ooh.
So I mean, I totally get it, and that's interesting. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's
No.
exactly what they do. They pass the basket for money, but they also pass the basket for sweets as well.
Mm-hmm. And I'll give you a great hack. I'll give you and your listeners a great hack. There's an amino acid called L-glutamine, Glutamine, L-glutamine. And glutamine mimics glucose. Okay. So if you are new in your sobriety and you are getting physical cravings and you are trying to avoid eating the cake, eating the candy, eating the ice cream, because honestly, think about it, man. Like, what would be the point of getting sober and putting on 30 pounds?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just traded one thing for the other. And so take a 500 milligram capsule of L-glutamine. It's very inexpensive. You can get it anywhere. Open that capsule, put the 500 milligrams directly underneath your tongue. Let it sit there for 30 seconds. Wash it down with clean water. Thank God, give a little prayer, and on you go. I guarantee that physical craving is going to go away in 90 seconds.
Oh, so this is the L-glutamine is for something during a craving. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. If you get a physical craving, you get that sugar craving, 500 milligram capsule, open it up, pour the powder underneath your tongue, let it sit there for 30 seconds. Your physical craving is gone within 90. And off you go. And off you go. And so I have come up with a supplement stack that works for alcoholism, that works for addiction, that even works for dysthymia or low-level depression. And I have been able to break low-level depression with people in 72 hours.
Wow.
In 72 hours, using amino acids, B vitamins, and some wonderful things to help you sleep at night. And so much of my work with my clients is getting them to understand that, one, this is not entirely your fault. And that, what we think of ourselves, again, determines our reality. So if I'm walking around and think I'm a piece of shit, irredeemable alcoholic, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You're going to end up going right back. And so, let me say something here too. And again, I'll try and keep my trigger points down to a bare minimum.
Now, I welcome trigger points because it makes you think. And if you want to be the person that hears something that quote unquote triggers you and you want to shut it off, then that's on you. We need to get the mind activated. We need to experience and critical think things. So don't hold back, my friend.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say this right now. Quitting cold turkey doesn't work. Doesn't work. Worst idea in the world. Straight up. You want to make sure that you drink again in the future? Quit cold turkey. Trust me. How are you going to tell me you're drinking you're drinking 2 pints of Jim Beam a day, and all of a sudden you're just going to cut it off. You're drinking you're taking 12 silver bullets to the head every day, and you're just going to, okay, I'm done. Bullshit. Never, ever, ever works. Never works. So we don't quit. My clients don't quit. We don't use the word quitting because nobody likes a quitter, dude. You know who really doesn't like a quitter? The alcoholic in your head.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
We taper. We taper. Depending on, like, when a client shows up at my doorstep, we do an assessment, how long they've been drinking, how hard they've been drinking, why they've been drinking, what time of day they start drinking. And we taper. And I will tell you, I've had some clients who have been drinking a case of beer a day, 24 beers a day. I had a client out of New York City who was drinking high-end Japanese whiskey, drinking a bottle of it a day, kid. Like guy who works on Wall Street, high pressure, big money, taking a bottle of Japanese whiskey to the head a night and still getting up and doing his job and doing it very well the next day, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, been there.
But we take that and we taper. Taper. We taper.
So, okay. So with the taper, okay, and I'm picking up what you're laying down with that. So what is your reasoning for tapering as opposed to cold turkey? Are you suggesting there's dangers to cold turkey? Because I can get on board with that. Absolutely. Go into that a little bit more. Why taper as opposed to the cold turkey, which is, the general suggestion?
So a couple reasons. One, a lot of it depends on your personal history with alcohol. If you've been getting after it for 10 years, 15 years, just steady taking shots to the head, all of a sudden stopping, terrible idea. Seizures, brain damage, all kinds of problems can come out of it. Okay. So we don't do that. Second, nobody likes a quitter. Nobody likes a quitter. You have to understand that there's a little baby up here.
Oh, yeah.
And you've been giving that baby its juice for 10 years, 15 years. And so all of a sudden you're going to take that juice box away from that baby. What, you think that baby's not going to cry, scream, shit its pants, throw a temper tantrum? And when we first stop, dude, we're not strong enough to resist the baby. And eventually you'll get tired of the baby crying and whining and shitting itself. And you'll just be like, okay, fine, here, just have a beer, have a drink. And the baby's quiet again. Yeah. So we have to make a deal with the baby. Right? We make a deal with the baby. I'm going to give you your juice, but you only get X amount. And one other reason that I find that the taper is so important, our drinking becomes unconscious. Even if we get up in the morning and we say, okay, we're not drinking today. All of a sudden, dude, you'll wake up in the state store. Yep. You'll wake up at the AM, PM with two tall boys of Mike's Hard Lemonade, and you're like, how did I get here again?
Yeah.
How did I get here again? Because let me tell you something. It's not you. If you've been getting after it for years, it's not you driving the bus. You got to understand, it's not you driving the bus anymore, man. You have surrendered control of the steering wheel to the alcohol. Our behavior becomes unconscious. Okay. So if I set up with a client and I say, all right, we're going to do a 21-day taper. We map it out. We chart it out. We say, okay, you're drinking 6 drinks a day. For the first week, you're going to continue to drink as you normally would, except you are going, and I send them a calendar and I say, I want to know the time of your first drink. I want to know the time of your last drink. I want to know how many drinks you had. Right?
Right.
And so after that first week, we can then chart. We have some data to look at. And it's like, okay, I had 6, 9, 6, 5. And I'll be like, okay, whoa. Let's talk about the 9-day. what happened on the 9-day? And then you find out, well, I had to let one of my employees go. Or my accountant called me up and was like, hey, you owe $1,200 more than you thought on your taxes. So you begin to look at what is triggering you, what is making the number fluctuate up or down.
Yeah.
Then you have some data, right? You have some data to work with then. So from there, that second week, you kind of begin to feel out the client, begin to feel out where they are, and you go, okay, your average has been 6. Can we agree for the next 5 days on 5? And they go, yeah, I think I can do 5. Great. I check in with them by text. Hey man, how you doing? Did you stick to 5? And I do checkup calls, 15-minute checkup calls, 20-minute checkup calls, 30-minute checkup calls on my clients all week long. All week long. I have one long call with them of an hour, and then I just check in 3 days later, 4 days later. Hey man, how are you? You been able to stick to 5? All right, good. All right, we'll talk on Monday and we'll plan out strategy for the next week. We are making our unconscious behavior conscious.
Like
if they're drinking wine, for example, they're just free pouring in one of those big old red wine glasses, filling it to the rim. No. Week number 2, we start measuring it out. We get one of those little Pyrex cups that's got the ounces on the side. And you start pouring it out and you start measuring it and you start making the unconscious behavior conscious. And all of a sudden, you become present. You become aware of your behavior. And you're like, oh, I'm the idiot in my kitchen measuring out shitty Gallo wine at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Right.
Okay. And you take 3 weeks and you do that and you just taper slowly. And all of a sudden you're down to 1 drink and you find yourself, okay? You find, like I had a client who drinks the airplane bottles, and I would go into the liquor store, the convenience store, and I made him taper in front of the cashier. Right? Like he would go in, he'd be buying 5 at first. Next week, he'd go in buy 4. Next week, he'd go in buy 3. Next week, he'd buy 2. And the closer you get down to 0, the dumber you feel. And the more ridiculous you understand your behavior is. And all of a sudden, you're standing in front of that cute checkout girl with 1 bottle. And you're sitting in your car, drinking 1 airplane bottle going, what in the hell am I doing? What am I doing? And all of a sudden, you're driving the bus again, man. You're driving the bus again. You got both hands on the wheel. You're present. You are accountable and responsible for your behavior. And normally, 7 times out of 10, before I get a client down to that 1 drink, they stop. They never get down to that 1 drink because they understand the redundancy of what it is that they're doing. They are present. They are accountable for their own behavior. And they understand what they're doing at their core is poisoning themselves and killing themselves. So, you want to go ahead and do cold turkey and white knuckle it? Man, this is 2023. That's some 100-year-old thinking. Really, yeah. That's 100-year-old thinking. That's how you used to end up in the loony bin.
Yeah.
Back in the day, shaken. Why?
Yep.
Well, why? You're trying to reclaim your life. You're trying to reinvent yourself. That is no way to begin. That's no way to begin. Scott, I've done month-long tapers with people. 30 days, 35 days, 40 days. And they'll go up and down, up and down, up and down. I don't give them shit about it. I don't guilt trip them about it. But we look at it honestly, and we figure out what's going on, what triggers them, and how we can reduce the triggers. It's all about making the unconscious behavior conscious. That's a long ass explanation. I'm so sorry.
I am 100% on board with it makes total sense about the unconsciousness. You know, I went to treatment for 60 days. It was my second attempt, and everything was fine until my grandfather, who brought me home, hugged me and shook my hand, and there's a $100 bill in his hand. And then the 4 hours after leaving treatment, I was in the bag again. I went to the store, I got it, and I remember him shaking my hand, looking at the $100 bill, and the next memory I have is there's a pint of pop-off vodka sitting in front of me, and I'm staring at it. You know, so I do believe that it's unconscious. I mean, morning after morning, I am not going to drink, and then the next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock, everybody's asleep. I have the alcohol in the same spot that it always is. I bought it, and it's in me, and then I'm like, fuck, I wasn't going to drink today. Well, it takes over. So I totally understand that, and I think this is fascinating. I'm very interested in this taper thing. You know, I've heard other people too, you know, gradually working down, because it is dangerous to go cold turkey. You know, I had one of the worst experiences in my life. I don't know if it was a seizure or what, you know, but I woke up in a dream and couldn't wake up. And it was the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me, because I thought I was going to die, and I actually killed myself in the dream to try to wake up. You know, so I that obviously had something to do with the detox and the craziness. It is extremely dangerous to go cold turkey if you're going at it like I was, you know, almost 2/5 a day. You know, drink until you pass out, wake up, rinse and repeat. So I'm totally with you on that. So I wanted to ask you too. So the and I'm terrible with medicine names. The L-glutamine.
Yeah,
So that's
glutamine,
for
correct.
glutamine. Okay, so that's for cravings. What is the niacin for?
So B vitamins help. They are basically what regulate our mood, right? Serotonin, B vitamins, those are the two biggies that regulate mood. Alcohol completely drains the brain of B vitamins. And so that's why we get mood swings. It's why we get angry. It's why we get sad. All of these things, because the brain is depleted of the nutrients that it needs to balance itself out, right? And so at a certain point in the taper process, we begin to add those B vitamins back in. You know, there are even herbs that I use. Matter of fact, I use one herbal extract that is so incredibly powerful during the tapering process that it makes you kind of want to stop drinking. It makes you feel full. It makes you feel warm. It almost mimics the physical feeling of a buzz. You're not high, but this herb, this particular extract that I use, is the closest thing to a silver bullet I've ever found. And so it is about rebalancing the brain, rebalancing the bodies. We're mineral deficient. 9 times out of 10, we're protein deficient. 9 times out of 10, we're B vitamin depleted. And that's why the diet and the supplementation is key to recovery and long-term recovery. I'm not talking about 3 months, 9 months, 12 months. I'm talking about 20 years.
Sure.
Look, addiction is a 360-degree disorder. All right. I'll tell you, just because of my personal niche and the clients that I work with, you know, there's always a comorbidity. It's always alcohol plus weed, or it's always alcohol plus caffeine, or it's alcohol plus gambling, right? It's alcohol plus reading the news too much, spending too much time on social media. I call it data addiction, right? And alcohol is just the gateway to all of the other things, right? And so it becomes a matter of looking at the entire life of the client: work, home life, spouse, kids, the culture, Where are you getting your information from? You spending too much time on social media? How are you eating? Are you exercising? Are you taking care of yourself? How's your relationship with God? Are you exercising extreme self-care? How are you sleeping? I mean, you can't just, no offense to anybody, you can't just go to a meeting and read 100-year-old book and be free of this. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
You got to look at the client's entire life, dude. Entire life.
And I'm with you. And a lot of the people that say that is the way to do it is to quit and go to a meeting every day and follow that. They completely miss the fact that, sure, they've been sober for 27 years, but they're miserable bastards. And they're always the ones that are finding people on Twitter to say, you're doing it wrong. This is the way to do it. And it's not everybody. But I've come to find that the people that think that way are normally the ones that are still miserable on the inside. They lie and say, oh yeah, my life's never been better. Well, then why are you seeking out complete strangers and telling them that they're doing it wrong? You are miserable on the inside.
Sober, but unchanged.
Yes.
Sober, but unchanged. They're still as miserable as the day they walked in the door. And for me, that was a big reinforcement to me that I was like, oh no, like I'm going to hang around you dreary people for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
No. And it was at that point when I started to explore all the other avenues as well. I mean, dude, I went to smart recovery meetings. I went to group therapy. I went to one-on-one therapy. I did this wonderful program called Refuge Recovery. I don't know if you know about Refuge Recovery.
Buddhist. Yep.
Can't recommend it highly enough. I got more out of Refuge in 2 years than I did at all of my time in AA.
Yep.
I mean, I even went so far as to do psychedelic therapy, right? Both in a clinical setting and on my own. I mean, towards the end, right before I kicked forever, I found myself in a teepee sitting for 16 hours straight, cross-legged with the Lakota Indian tribe.
Awesome.
Eating fermented cactus and talking to God. So, look, if one program does not resonate with your listeners, my best advice is to try everything.
Yeah.
Try everything and take away what resonates from each of these programs, from each of these modalities, from each of these dogmas, and integrate it into a system that works for you, rather than going back and back and back to a system that either doesn't resonate with you or doesn't work with you or doesn't check off all the boxes. Try everything.
Yeah.
Try everything.
That's one of the main messages that I try to throw out there. I mean, you said it earlier, AA failed you twice, you needed more.
Yeah.
AA was a stepping stone for me. It did. There's a lot of good things in there. And you're kind of alluding to it, just being sober isn't enough. And that's kind of what Bill W was saying. It's just a symptom of other problems. It's how we kind of cope with certain things. And so there's a lot of good information in there, but you're right. It needs to evolve too, and not just be, first of all, it doesn't say anything in the first 164 pages about having a sponsor. That's the first thing that people need to realize, that you need to read the book for what it says. They call it a textbook, and it is a textbook, but read what it says and go from there. The other thing I want to touch on too, you said, you're talking about traumas. Trauma can have, and you mentioned this, many forms.
Yep.
A trauma for me, what I'm beginning to understand is I was raised by she's 98 now. She was my great grandmother. And she taught me to just not think about it. That was her favorite saying. When something was bothering me and I was upset and I was crying or whatever, just don't think about it. And so I adapted that, and I would go and play with my toys and create a fantasy world where I was a hero and all these things. And I didn't deal with those things. That to me, teaching, not being willing as a parent figure to talk to your children and about their feelings and what's going on. I mean, you think she was trying to protect me. She didn't want to see me sad. She wanted me to not worry about these things that were out of my control. So, and that it was right. I mean, her intent was good, but it fucked me up, dude. And then so when I found alcohol,
Sorry about that.
that's exactly what alcohol did for me.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about it. So it was even easier.
Most of our parents, grandparents, great grandparents, frankly, even most people now are ill-equipped, unequipped to deal with life on life's terms.
Right.
Period. Period. Again, that is why I always stress the singular walk aspect of the recovery process. It is you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your sponsor. It's not your shrink. It's not the meetings. It's not the people that irritate you in the meetings, not your friends, not your mom, not your spouse, not your kids, not the guy who cuts you off in traffic. It's you.
Yep.
It's you.
Yep.
Although I will throw an interesting idea at you, right? Here's another possible trigger point. I believe alcoholism, especially, I believe that addiction is a form of possession.
Interesting. Go ahead.
Right.
Keep going.
So we often refer to liquor as spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And the word alcohol is the origin of the word alcohol. Alcohol is a very old term used in the Middle East for spirits. And I believe that each alcohol has its own kind of spirit or energetic attachment to it. You have to understand, alcohol is literally the oldest method of mind control in existence, right?
Sure.
Oldest form of mind control, man. You give somebody enough booze, you own them. You own them, and you can get them to do whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And the people, my clients, they come from a place of being very freedom-minded, very sovereign-minded. You know, they want freedom, they want liberation. And I believe that alcoholism is a form of low-level possession. And some liquors, some substances are worse than others, like tequila, right? Like you give somebody 3 shots of tequila, man, and all of a sudden you can see it in the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there anymore. They're not there anymore. You have checked out. You've handed the keys over to the mezcal. You handed the keys over to the vodka. You handed the keys over to Anheuser-Busch. And that's who's driving the bus, right? I tell my clients, Scott, in the nicest way possible, when we get to a place where we are ready to put it down and keep it down, that we are clinically insane. You are clinically nuts. Nothing you're saying is making any sense. Nothing you're doing is making any sense. Your judgment is terrible because it's not you driving the bus anymore. And look, you know, part of one of the worst parts about the disorder of alcoholism, and I don't even like that word, to be honest. I don't like isms. I'm not a big fan. But one of the worst things is the fact that we go and we continue to traumatize ourselves. We wear off layers of our self-esteem and self-respect every time we go to the convenience store, every time we go to the liquor store. Mm-hmm. We are re-traumatizing ourselves over and over and over again. And so again, going back to the idea that it is not entirely your fault, there is somebody else driving the bus. And the idea of the taper, the slow reduction, the making the unconscious conscious, bringing the sense of responsibility back, bringing the sense of control back, slowly but surely, we're putting both hands on the wheel again. We're turning off the cruise control, and it becomes a slow process of us regaining control, respect, and self-esteem back, bringing everything back to ourselves. After that, once you get clean, you get 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, 180 days, and you want to screw around and you want to go drink again, that's on you, son.
Yeah.
That's on you, because you're driving the bus now. You're making the decisions. But when you're in active use, it's not you. So you can't take the blame entirely. The spirit of alcohol is driving the bus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. I mean, there's a reason why they call it spirits.
Yeah,
I
man.
think it is because I mean, outward appearances would be that you are possessed. You're a completely different person. And tequila is a great example because, I've seen people that get drunk and they're drunk and sloppy and annoying, but they get drunk on tequila, they're dangerous. I mean, the last time, the last time I drank tequila, this was decades ago. I got a scar on my hand from cutting my hand to be blood brothers with my buddy that I was hanging out with. So, I mean, and what's crazier about that story is he couldn't cut himself. He had me do it. And I remember cutting into his hand and the look on his face when I did it, because it's dumb. I would never do that in real life. You know what I mean? I think calling possession's fair.
Yeah, it is. It is. And again, look, no one beats us up like us.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cuts us down like we do. And so again, going back and calling yourself an alcoholic over and over and over and over and over again, when is it enough, man?
Yeah.
When is it enough? I mean, I used to, and the LA, Los Angeles sobriety scene is powerful, strong. Like, if you want to ruin your life, no better place than Los Angeles. If you want to save your life, no better place than Los Angeles. Strong recovery, right? You got the rooms are full every night. The shrinks offices are full every night. The group therapy class is full every night. You can lose yourself and find yourself real fast
real quick
in Los Angeles. But I used to trigger the old timers because I'd walk in and I'd be like, "Hi, I'm Bradley. I'm a recovered alcoholic." Man.
See, that's a thing, dude, too. I mean, read your book that you're reading. We have recovered. It is mentioned, the word recovered is mentioned in there numerous times. I have it highlighted all over my big book. We can recover, we do recover, we have recovered are words that are in that book. It is not wrong to say that. I totally agree that when I went back to treatment the third time, I started doing affirmations 3 times a day in the morning. Tell myself 3 things, and most of the time they're the same. You are worth this, you are a good person, and I love you. And I'd make myself look myself right in the eyes and say that. Now, it's weird, but I would go in and laugh at myself sometimes. You know what that laughter did? It set me on a happier, more positive note, even if laughing at myself. So I agree. I agree. I still introduce myself as an alcoholic a lot of times when I go in there. If I'm being completely honest again, it's just to appease the people in there and not deal with, like what you were talking about.
Yeah, the judgment.
Yeah, but it is, I was an alcoholic, and if I go back to drinking, I will be an alcoholic again. But talking about yourself, they're important. I earlier today we did a podcast with a guy, and he's at 40 days. And he's like, look, I know I'm only at 40 days. And it's like, dude, I get what you're saying, because I say it too. I'm only at 8 months when I'm talking to somebody with decades of sobriety, but that's a word that you're digging the process that you made. You don't get to 8 months without 40 days. You don't get to 27 years without 8 months. Words are important. And whether you believe that they have that kind of impact on you or not, I guess that's up to you, but I believe that they do. So I agree with you 100%.
Yep. The universe is a mirror. That's why we got to be very, very careful about, look, and let me mention God in this real quick, because it's critical to the work that I do. I don't identify as anything anymore, right? If anybody wants the best meditation mantra in the world, I'm going to give it to you. And it's 4 words, and it's going to change your life. You ready? I'll give this to you for free. This is a freebie. On the in-breath, God is. Hold it. On the out breath, I am. That's it. You don't need to shave your head. You don't need to wear an orange robe. You don't need to go and join an ashram. You don't have to take a vow of chastity. You just need to go and sit and connect with whatever you think God is.
Sure.
Right. And you want another hack? I'll give you an incredible God hack for people who are still actively using. You ready? I love this, dude. I love this. So I want you, if you're listening to me and you're still drinking, I want you to bless your drinks. I want you to bless your drinks. Okay. So you pour that drink, you crack that beer, you pour that wine, whatever it is that you do, and you put one hand around it, and you put your other hand around it. And you ever notice when you put something in your hands, you leave it there for a minute, like that heat, that warmth starts to come between your hands? Mm-hmm. You're going to take that drink and you're going to let it just warm up for a second. And then you're going to put it up to your forehead. And if there's somebody else in the room, you can go do it in the bathroom. You can go do it in the wherever. And you put it up to your forehead and you repeat the following. May this drink be for my highest good. May this drink bring me closer to you, God. May I know you. May I experience you more deeply through this drink. Thank you. Drink your drink. Drink your drink. You will be very surprised what happens.
Interesting.
Straight up, man. Straight up. Bless your drinks. Bless your cocktails. Bless your wine. Bring whatever you think God is into your drinking habits. If you think you're a lost case, no. God, again, your version of God, whatever you think God is, can work miracles that you cannot. And by bringing God or the concept of God into your addiction, into your habit, even down into it, may this be for my highest good. May I know you more. May I experience you more deeply. May our relationship grow through this drink. Because we know at the end of the day, man, we know if you have any kind of relationship with God or a creator or the infinite or the universe or whatever you label you want to put on the unlabelable.
Sure.
Bringing that in, you know God does not want you destroying yourself. God loves you in ways that many people will never understand. If you ever get the opportunity to encounter God, it is like a million hugs from a million Italian grandmothers all at once. All at once. Bringing God into that drink, that cup of spirits that you're about to take in. Bringing God into that mix will reinforce your desire to quit, will bring a higher level of vibration. Dare I say, it might even counteract the spirits in that liquid, kid.
I'm with you on the vibration. I'm with you. You know, whatever it may be, whatever God is to you, even if that word makes you feel icky. It did me for a long time, but things have changed.
Yeah.
But you're bringing in positivity. You're bringing in whatever you can to flip it. So I think that's important, man. It's just like the affirmation. It's like anything else. So yeah, I can dig it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it helps with the reframing of alcohol, right? Again, going back to the idea that this is not entirely your fault. I mean, think about it, man. I come from a background in the music business, in radio and records and promotion, working on music festivals, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's a real thing. For me, I'm Gen X, right? For Gen X, Gen Y, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Right? We have been sold by Hollywood, by Madison Avenue in the advertising. We've been sold that alcohol is acceptable. We've been sold that alcohol is sexy. You can't pick up chicks without getting them a couple drinks, right? We've been sold that, somebody dies. What's the first thing we do afterward? Dunk. Somebody gets married. What's the first thing we do afterwards? Dunk. Somebody's birthday, quinceañeras, graduation parties, Flag Day.
Monday.
Monday, man.
Yeah.
Pick a day, and so the reframing of alcohol, understanding that alcohol is ethanol. It is poison. You're getting drunk. That's brain cells dying.
Yep.
It's brain cells dying, man. And so, looking at it differently, one of the things that I do with my clients is I get pictures of bums. I get pictures of drunk homeless people. I get pictures of pretty girls in $1,000 dresses covered in vomit. I get pictures of frat boys laying over toilets with their head in the toilet. And I make my clients print them out and put them around the house. Wherever they kept the booze, there's a picture of somebody covered in their own shit. On the refrigerator, there's a pretty girl covered in a bunch of puke and $1,000 shoes, right? Bathroom mirror is a great reinforcement.
Sure.
Because look, we've been programmed. So we must reprogram ourselves. We must break the programming, because otherwise you're still going to think that it's romantic somehow. Oh, I can go out to dinner and on an anniversary and just have a glass of wine. Well, why? When you know it's poison? Why? When you understand what it does to your gut, when it does to your liver, what it does to the mind, why would you go back and repoison yourself over and over and over again? So I tell people, man, look, I'm not a recovery coach. I'm not. I don't believe in labels. I don't like labels in my personal life, in my work life. Don't like labels, but I am sure not a recovery coach. I work differently than recovery coaches do. I think I'm a little cheaper, actually, than a lot of recovery coaches. But I got to tell you, I get results. Not bullshitting you, not blowing sunshine up your butt. I get results because I go about it differently than 90% of the recovery models, the recovery coaches, all the, I don't have any accreditation, man. I don't want any accreditation. I don't need a plaque on my wall. I lived it.
Yeah.
I lived it, right?
No, dude, I'm relating with you on that 100%. I did get this the recovery coach certification, and I was going to go back to college and get a degree for this and that. But this podcast is fulfilling all the holes that I thought that was going to do. I'm a highly trained past alcoholic. I mean, I've been through, there isn't anything really outside of death that I haven't experienced in my alcoholism, and so that experience is better than anything that some college is going to give me. And, and just bringing experience, and others' experience to people that are struggling. I think it's the most valuable thing that you can do. So I think it's great that you're doing that too.
You staying sober is your accreditation.
Right.
You doing this podcast and being of service to others and learning from other people. That's your accreditation. Your accreditation, the letters after your last name that normally would be PhD.
Yeah.
The more of these podcasts you do, kid, the longer the accreditation is going to get, and you will end up being able to take the entirety of all of these stories and how people got clean, why they stayed clean, taking all of this stuff and distilling it down into your own methodology, your own language, and you will teach.
There's something at work that's outside of this, because I focused, when I first got into recovery, I focused on those letters after my name, and the credits and the continuing education hours that I had, and wanting to have a title and all these things. And now all of a sudden, we're having this conversation, and, very recently I've decided that my self-worth is far more valuable and meaningful to me than a bunch of letters or a job title or any of those things. And
Yeah.
it's just crazy how things come together.
Yeah, I gotta go here shortly, but
Yeah.
I'll say to you, I think one of the reasons why I'm so successful, like I said, I'm not a recovery coach. I don't focus necessarily on addictions, but so many of my clients already come to my door, like they come to my door with something else, but they got an addiction of some kind or another. Like, I don't know anybody who isn't owned by something, right?
Right.
Who's not owned by something. Somebody got a hook in you. Something got a hook in you. But I think one of the reasons why I'm so successful is because I approach it as a complete 360-degree disorder. And again, all of your life has to be looked at if you want to kick recovery, because it's not just one thing. It's a bunch of little different things. I'm going to say one last thing before I go. I stress with my clients that we don't do drama. There's a lot of dark humor in my coaching. We make a lot of dark jokes, man. We share drunk stories. We share terrible experiences. We share high points and low points. But I want to say this to you. Recovering does not have to be this giant, massive, overwhelming, dark, impossible, mountainous thing that you get out of bed every day and you have to conquer.
Right.
It is, I'm telling you. I mean, you can if you want, but eventually you're going to get tired of climbing the mountain. I guarantee. Yep. So let me give you a reframe on that. Okay. Recovery is not about the mountain. It's not this huge thing. It is a long series of micro choices and micro decisions that we make day by day, moment by moment, week by week, month by month, year by year. It is a decision not today, but right now, not to pick up again. Yeah. You go out to a barbecue, dude, if you need to, go get a 6-pack of O'Doul's. Go get they make perfectly fine 0 alcohol IPAs. You don't want to feel weird about it? Go get some hop water. I don't know if you found out about hop water. Hop water has no carbs, no sugar, no calories. On a 100-degree day, go have a hop water, man. Nobody's going to say boo to you. Yeah. Nobody's going to say a word to you. Nobody's going to look at you strangely. The non-alcoholic beverage market is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year sector. And it's not like it was back in the day when my pops would have a near beer or, an O'Doul's or whatever it is. Like, you got options now. Yeah. It is a decision that you will make on a moment-by-moment basis. It doesn't have to be a mountain. It doesn't have to be this monster in the room. It can just be like, you know what? I'm going to that barbecue today, and I'm going to take a couple of club sodas with me. Yep. And that's it. And that's it, because the more air we pump into it, the more drama we pump into it. Again, the universe is a mirror. If we think it's this big thing and we're fighting demons and, there's a bottle of vodka behind every blade of grass, that's not helpful, man. Yeah. Yeah. Making it a mountain. Yep. Yeah. It's not. It's a series of different, better decisions that you make on a moment-by-moment basis, simply by just not going back. Thank you, dude. Really, thank you. This has been fantastic. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. And real quick before you go, how can people learn more about what you got going on? If you want to plug anything, go ahead. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the website right now, I had a website up, but I was getting 3,000 blunt force attacks on my website per month. and it just got too much. So I moved everything to Substack, which is a blogging platform where it really feels like the next wave of independent and citizen journalists have all kind of migrated to Substack. And so you can go to greatawakecoach.com. greatawakecoach.com. That is going to bounce you to greatawakecoach.substack.com. There's an about page with my bio. There is information about the sober group coaching program that I'm running called the Sober Patriot. It's in its second iteration. We'll be starting the Sober Patriot 3 starting after July 4th. There are articles on the awakening process and dealing with the death of the old reality, which is one of the pillars of my teachings as well. Social media, you can find me on Telegram. I got kicked off of Twitter a couple of years ago in the great purge of 2020. And a lot of us migrated over to Telegram. Telegram has its issues with scammers and fakes and whatnot. But I got to tell you, man, 80% of my clients are coming from Telegram. I love Telegram. So you can find me on Telegram at The Great Awake Coach. Got 7,200 followers over there. I'm on True Social, but I hate True Socials. I'm Great Awake Coach over there. Not on Facebook. On Twitter, for the time being, I am at Inner, INNER, FKNG Peace, PEACE. And that is the title of the blunt, dark, funny self-help book that I'm publishing this fall called Inner Fucking Peace. Sorry for the swear words.
Fuck yeah.
So yeah, man, please, you can, if you're interested in having a conversation with me about one-on-one coaching, if you're interested in having a conversation with me about group coaching, reach out to me directly at greatawakecoach@gmail.com. Let's carve out 45 minutes to talk about where you're at, where you want to be, and how I can help you get there, right? I tell people that I'm a Sherpa, right? I clear the path for you, man. I've already gone to the top of the mountain. I just clear the path for you. I walk the path for you and make sure that you don't trip over anything. Make sure you don't fall off the side of the cliff. But you're going to do the work. I'm just going to show you how, and I'm going to lead you there. And so again, man, a thousand thank yous. I really appreciate the time today.
Yeah, man, this is great stuff. Thank you. And make sure to check him out. If you got any questions, get with me. And if you can't figure it out, I'll help you find your way to Great Awake Coach. So thanks again, man. And we'll catch up again soon, hopefully.
Yeah, please, man. Let me know. I'm always available, always available. It feels good. Honestly, it just feels good to share an alternative perspective on all of this, because it can't just be like we all end up the same way, addicted. We all end up drunk or high or fat or whatever it is, right? We all end up at the same destination, but there's a million different ways and a million different reasons why we end up at those similar destinations. And I think it's time, man. Look, reality is falling apart. The old ways, they don't work anymore, man. They're either broken or outdated, or they don't work for everybody anymore. And so I'm just trying to provide a different perspective on all of this so people can heal and grow and move forward. We need functional people, man. We need new leaders. The next 5 years, dude, is going to change literally everything about this reality. And we can't have you broken. We can't have you a mess. You are needed. You're needed, whether you know it or not.
Amen. Oh, yeah. All right, man. Thank you. We'll end on that. That was awesome. Take care, and we'll see everybody on the next one.